Go ahead and take a closer look at one of the most watched races from yesterday's primary elections. We are talking about the race for South Carolina governor. So right here is a look on the Democratic side. Voters chose State Representative Jermain Johnson as their nominee. And you can see right here about that number. He won with nearly 60% of the vote statewide, with Billy Webster finishing in second with almost about 30%, and then Mullins McLeod with 10 points. South Carolina's 52nd House District since 2022, serving parts of Richland and Kershaw counties. Moving on over to the Republican side of this race, it was much more crowded. We had 5 candidates competing for this nomination. Right on in here, you can see all of them. And look at these numbers here leading on into a runoff. We have Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette, and we also have Attorney General Alan Wilson. Those are our top 2. So because neither of these candidates received more than 50% of the vote, it is now sending it over to a runoff, which is going to happen later this month. Now, Wilson enters the next phase of the campaign with endorsements from several attorney generals across the country and the South Carolina Sheriff's Association. He also picked up support from 2 former candidates, with State Senator Josh Kimbrell endorsing him last week and Congresswoman Nancy Mace throwing her support behind him during her speech last night. Evette, meanwhile, carrying the high-profile endorsement of President Donald Trump, a backing that helped boost her campaign in the final weeks before the primary and secure a spot in that runoff. Another big talker that we are talking about here is the Attorney General race here, with Alan Wilson running for governor. Voters will then choose with a new Attorney General for the first time in more than a decade. Now, on the Democratic side, it was Attorney Richard Herrick. He was the only candidate to file for that office, so it sent him straight to the general election over in November. But here is a look here on the Republican side. It featured State Senator Stephen Goldfinch and Prosecutor David Stumbo. They are both going to be advancing on into a runoff. Again, that is happening later this month. Moving on over to Agriculture Commissioner, this was something that a lot of people had their eyes on. You can see how colorful this map is. This because one of the most watched candidates in the Republican primary was Cody Simpson, who also received a high-profile endorsement from President Donald Trump. Now, Simpson did finish as the top, with the vote getting on Tuesday, but only by 38.1%. He did fall short of that majority that was needed to win that nomination outright. As a result, he will face Danny Ford in a Republican runoff later this month. The winner of that race will then advance to November to face Democrat candidate Deshaun Blanding. Now to one of the most high-profile races over. Let's go ahead and talk about a U.S. House. Specifically, we're going to talk about 6 right on in here. 6th district. This is the state's only congressional district that's represented by a Democrat, Congressman Jim Clyburn, and was at the center of this year's debate over congressional redistricting. So first, we want to go ahead and show you into the GOP race that you can see right here on your screen. Now, voters backed John Peterson, who won nearly 3/4 of that vote there in this area. Oh, there it is right there on your screen, and securing that GOP nomination. But if we move on over again, as we mentioned on the Democratic side, right there on your screen, you can see James Clyburn here as the incumbent, taking more than 90% of the vote, cruising to that Democratic nomination and setting up the general election matchup this fall in South Carolina's 6th congressional district. Now, we will have much more on June 23rd for these runoffs, so depend on us as we follow all these races again in just a couple of weeks. All right.